Hi student, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Juitania. I am a lecturer in Accounting Study Program. And now we are going to talk about passive voice in meeting 6. Let's move on to the next slide. The objective of our lessons today is the usage of passive voice in sentence and create active and passive sentence. Look at the example here. He writes many letters. This one is active sentence. You have to change into passive sentence. We have to analyze one by one first. He is a subject, writes is a verb, and many letters is an object. So you have to move the object here into the subject in passive sentence, and then you have to move he is a subject in active sentence into the object of passive sentence. And then you have to analyze first which to be is suitable for adding in this passive sentence. You have to look at this one. Many letters is plural or singular. Yep, many letters is plural one, so you have to add the appropriate to be of plural as well. And then you have to change the right into verb 3. You can write here, verb 1 is right, verb 2 is wrote, and verb 3 is written. So you have to write down written in here because the form of passive voice is to be plus past participle. We can conclude that the sentence is many letters are written by him. Let's move on to the next slide. This one is active sentence. A strange thing happened yesterday. You have to analyze it first. A strange thing is subject, happen is verb, and yesterday is adverb of time. Is there any object here? No, there is no object here. So the question is, can the sentence change into passive? The answer is no, it cannot. Why? Because it is intransitive verb. What is intransitive verb? Intransitive verb is a verb having or needing no object. So the conclusion of this sentence, you cannot change into passive sentence because the verb happen is not the transitive one. This verb is intransitive. So the sentence cannot change into passive sentence. Let's move on to the next slide. You have to watch out intransitive verb. I tell you once again, intransitive verb is a verb having or needing no object. Here are the examples: happen, sleep, come, seem, die, and etc. You can find out another one in your dictionary or browsing in the internet. Let's move on to the next slide. The form of passive. Here is the form of passive voice. Subject plus be plus past participle, or we well known about past participle is verb 3 plus by plus object. There are 3 terms and conditions apply. You have to pay attention on the first one. The object in active verb or the object in active sentence becomes the subject of the passive verb or the subject of the passive sentence. The second one is only transitive verbs are used in the passive. And the last one is pay attention on tenses. You have to analyze what to be should be in subject of the passive sentence. And I remind you that transitive verbs is the verbs that can be followed by an object. Here is another example of active sentence that can be changed into passive sentence. You have to analyze the tenses first. What tenses is it? The tenses is past tense. The sentence is he wrote many letters. We analyze first. He is subject, wrote is verb 2, many letters is an object. So you have to move the object in active sentence into the subject in passive sentence. And what else? He is a subject in active sentence. Move onto object in passive sentence. And then we have to change wrote verb in active sentence into verb 3. Don't forget to put to be plus verb 3. You have to analyze first. Is the subject plural or is the subject singular? Many letters is plural subject, so you have to add the plural to be as well. You have to analyze it first. Past tense. How many to be in past tense? There are 2, was and were. Okay, for plural one, you have to put were plus verb 3. Written. Written is form of verb 3 from write, verb 1, verb 2 wrote, and the verb 3 written. Okay. We can conclude that we need subject, to be past, was or were. You have to analyze the subject first. Is it the singular or plural? And then verb 3. Jump out to the other example. Present continuous tense. In active sentence, he is writing many letters. We have to analyze it first. He is subject, is writing is verb. Sorry. Wait a minute, please. To be plus verb 1 ing, and the last one is object. You have to put object in this active sentence into the subject of passive sentence, and then you have to analyze this one. Yep, many letters is plural form, so you have to put are in here, and then being plus verb 3 of write is written, and then you have to change this one is an active sentence, he as a subject. You have to move on to the object in passive sentence. The sentence become many letters are being written by him. So you have to analyze it first. This one is the subject of passive sentence. You have to analyze which one is plural or which one is singular. You have to appropriate, you have to add the appropriate to be. And we can conclude that subject plus to be is or are plus being and plus verb 3. And we jump up into future tense. In active sentence, we have he will write many letters. You have to remind that we need to be plus verb 3 to change the active into passive. So we have to analyze it first. Subject, wait a minute, subject, verb, and then object. We have to move the object in active sentence into subject in passive sentence, and then we have to put will and then be. Why? Because this one is auxiliary verb modal, and the form of modal auxiliary must will plus verb 1. So we put be before verb 3. The verb 3 of write is written, and then he becomes an object of passive voice. And we can conclude that the passive is many letters will be written by him. Next slide. We are talking about present perfect tense. Here is the sentence, he has written many letters. He is a subject, has written is verb. Why we put has? Because the subject is singular, and has in this sentence has a meaning telah in bahasa, not punya. I believe that you have already known well about tenses, And let's continue. Many letters is object of the sentence. You have to change into passive. Many letters in object of active sentence into subject in passive sentence. You have to analyze this one. The subject in this sentence is plural, so the to be has to plural as well. We have to put have here and then been, and the verb 3 of written is written. And the last one is he is a subject in this active sentence becomes an object in passive sentence. And we can conclude that subject plus has or have, you have to consider it first about the subject. Is the subject is plural or is the subject is singular? And then been plus verb 3 and then by plus the object. Let's move on to the next slide. Here is passive sentence. So you have to change into active sentence. We have to break down first the sentence. English is learned by her. English is a subject in passive sentence. And then is learned is verb. And by her is the object. You have to think about what tenses it is. Look at this one. Is to be present. So we can conclude that this one is present tense. And we have to change into active one, so the object of passive sentence becomes the subject in active sentence. And then we have to think about the subject to make the new verb of active one. We have already known that this one is present tense. So, what is the appropriate verb? If you see she here, so we can use learns. And then the subject in passive sentence becomes the object of active sentence. Is it easy, right? So we can conclude that the form of active are the object in passive verb becomes the subject in active verb. The second one is change the participle or verb 3 into appropriate verb based on the subject and what the tenses is. You have to watch out. And move on to the next slide. You have to watch out these pronouns. Here are the English pronouns. I believe that you have already known well about the pronouns. And then here are the participle verb. The 50 most common irregular verbs. You have to remember these changes of base form into past form into past participle, or in bahasa we can call it verb 1, verb 2, and verb 3. Yep, it is time for you to exercise There are 6 sentences here. You have to decide if the sentences are active or the sentences are passive. Number 1 is an example. Tono prepared the salad. You have to analyze first and you have to think about the form of passive. Is there any to be here? No, there is no to be here. So this one is active one. How about number 2? The rice was prepared by Jamal. Do you look at the to be? Is there any to be here? Yes, there is. A to be was here. And then prepared is regular verb. What regular verb is? Regular verb is the verb or the changes of the verb 1, 2, and 3 just adding ed or d. This one is verb 3, this one is to be, and this one is an object. So we can conclude that this one is passive. And we can jump up to the next slide. This one is the second exercise. The instruction is each of the following sentences has a passive meaning. Underline twice the verbs that should be passive, then indicate if the sentences are correct or incorrect. Number 1 is an example. The boy had never been stung by a bee. You have to analyze in this verb first. What be should be? It is should be been, not be. So we can conclude that number 1 is incorrect one. And next, number 2, we have to analyze it first. The should is subject, where hang is verb, and then move on to the next clause, this one. They is subject, and were returned is verb. So you have to cross-check it first. Is the to be appropriate with the subject? Were is plural to be, and then the subject is plural one, so has already agreed with. And how about the next clause? Were here is plural one, and then they here is plural subject, so the subject and the verb has already agreed with. And we can conclude that number 2 is correct one. And number 3 and 4, it is task for you at home. And this one is the end of our lessons today. See you on next meeting, guys.